second anniversary in office, President Tinubu affirms bold decisions are yielding measurable results.
More than 20 people die in Niger State after devastating storm.
Trump tariffs reinstated after federal court suspension.
And on Good Morning Nigeria today, we shall discuss 26 years of democracy in the country.
"26 years is not just a long time, it's a whole generation. It is long enough to birth a new generation of persons who grow up and mature, oblivious of anything other than their experience, well, except what they read." Henry.
Well, when you talk about 26 years for a man, is that a long time? A 26-year-old?
It is. That's a man, a full-grown man.
Are you sure?
That is responsible for himself, will be held to account for anything that he does wrong.
Okay, I wanted to say that for a woman. She's a full-blown woman, probably with kids at 26.
So,
All right. Well, in 1999, Nigeria began a journey towards today, weathering storms in her stance to maintain her current democratic process. And of course,
the Fourth Republic is Nigeria's longest so far. It ushered in a transition in all spheres of national life. And we witnessed the adoption of a multi-party system, then gradually shifted towards current consolidation stages, which many believe requires a deliberate public policy framework that will produce sustainable democratic dividends.
Yes, Victor. Now, dividends that may ultimately address poverty, an electoral process fraught with challenges, enhancing the rule of law and the rights of citizens.
And some find it inevitable to reflect on the country's journey from an exporting nation in the 1970s and the 80s, of course, to one with ignored opportunities in the steel, textiles, pulp and paper, gas, air transportation, leather, locally produced or assembled items, to an economy importing more than 90% of its needs.
Not good at all. Now, conscious effort is being directed at changing these narratives to enable Nigeria to return to her days of glory and even surpass them. And
some studies have indicated an improvement in Nigeria's democratic process in the last 26 years, but insist it remains below both the numerical and global average ratings.
Concerned persons insist the political class must reflect on the last 26 years and realize it owes Nigerians its sacred duty to preserve the democratic system and operate by the rules.
Well, they believe that in spite of the challenges experienced in these uninterrupted years of democratic rule, democracy is the preferred form of government because it seeks equity, justice, and prioritizes the rule of the people over the whims of any individual.
What have these 26 years of uninterrupted democratic rule meant to Nigerians, both young and old? What gaps should be closed and which ignored opportunity should be given the required support? We have some guests joining us shortly in the course of this program to discuss 26 years of uninterrupted democracy. Welcome to the program. I'm Ian Ray John.
And I am Victor Azu. Thank you so very much for joining us. It is another Friday. Thank God it's Friday. The last episode for the week. And we are live on the network service of the NTA. Stay tuned for the newspaper review at some point. And Musa Abubakar is already seated to begin the day's broadcast. Musa, good morning to you.
Good morning to the both of you. Here's the news. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu says Nigeria has turned a critical corner towards economic recovery 2 years into his administration. In this nationwide address to mark his second anniversary in office, the president outlined key reforms under the Renewed Hope agenda, affirming that bold decisions taken since May 2023 are yielding measurable results. Meanwhile, former President Muhammadu Buhari congratulates President Bola Ahmed Tinubu on his midterm, saying that as the party and the government celebrates, the country should be reminded that leadership is a continuous journey. Muhammadu Buhari called for steadfast support for the APC government as it marks its second year in office, explaining that reforms will achieve success gradually, not overnight. He expressed support for the ongoing efforts by the administration to curb poverty and inflation, while urging Nigerians to remain optimistic and stay confident about the country's future. The governing All Progressives Congress says the turbulence experienced in the journey of the Renewed Hope agenda in the first 2 years of Tinubu's presidency was a clear manifestation of a careful planning ahead of a safe arrival within the ambit of a progressive and prosperous destination. This came to the fore during a midterm assessment of the activities and legacy projects of the APC-led national government under the stewardship of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Ahead of the June 30th, 2025 date set by the National Executive Committee of the People's Democratic Party, the embattled National Secretary of the party, Senator Samuel Anyanwu, has vowed never to back down in his quest to retain the office as the National Secretary of the party. Senator Anyanwu was speaking at a media briefing in Abuja. More than 20 people have died in a flood that submerged about 50 houses in Tifan Maza and Anguan Hausawa in Makwa local government area of Niger State. The Director General of the State Emergency Agency, Abdullahi Baba Ara, confirmed the flood to NTA, explaining that it was a result of heavy downpour on Wednesday in the area. He said 3 survivors, a woman and her 2 children, are recurrently receiving treatment at the Mokwa General Hospital, while rescue operations are still ongoing. The West African Examination Council, WAEC, has apologized for the delay that led to candidates writing the English language paper of the West African Senior School Certificate Examination late into the night on Wednesday, 28 May 2025. Head of the National Office, WAEC, Dr. Amos Dangut, renders apology while responding to questions. President Bola Tinubu has congratulated President Mohamed Ould-Cheikh El Ghazouani of Mauritania on the election of Dr. Sidi Ould Tah as the 9th president of the African Development Bank Group. Tah will succeed Dr. Akinwumi Adesina of Nigeria, who will step down in September after completing 2 5-year terms. The president restated his commitment to working closely with the incoming AFDB president to advance shared priorities, including infrastructure development, agricultural transformation, energy access, and climate resilience. A federal appeals court temporarily blocked a ruling that overturned most of Trump's tariffs, given the administration time to appeal. Officials say they may go to the Supreme Court and have other ways to impose tariffs if necessary. Well, that's good. Well, that's the news for now. Good Morning Nigeria continues after the break.
Have you heard the news? The federal government of Nigeria, through its direct benefit transfer program, has started the disbursement of 75,000 naira per household in 3 installments of 25,000, 25,000, 25,000 naira. Each recipient must have a validated national identification number, NIN, to receive the payment on behalf of their household members. To benefit, your household must be in the National Social Register of Poor and Vulnerable Households in Nigeria. The federal government's direct benefit transfer program is helping to reduce the effect of suffering while promoting financial and economic inclusion for the poor and vulnerable population in Nigeria.
Ìjọba fún wa ní 75,000 ọ̀nà mi ní àti káàdì láti lọ gbà nígbà tí mo sì gbà mo ń fi ṣe nǹkan tó dáa mo ra oògùn nínú rẹ̀ mo ra oúnjẹ tí màá jẹ nínú rẹ̀ mo sì wọkọ̀ mi náà ń bẹ a sì fi yòókù ṣe ọ̀rọ̀ ajé pé káàtó máa rí tó dá a dúpẹ́ lọ́wọ́ ìjọba wa òkè.
This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and National Orientation, Federal Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Reduction, in collaboration with the National Social Investment Programs Agency, National Social Safety Net's Coordinating Office, and the National Cash Transfer Office.
A new edition of TV Guide is out, featuring an impeccable personality with purposeful leadership.
Abba Abubakar Aliu, MD, CEO of Rural Electrification Agency, takes us through the gamut of activities and mandates of Rural Electrification Agency, as well as its achievements and dreams.
I really want to see that I leave a lasting legacy that can be spoken of in a very long period of time.
Welcome to a world of fun and excitement as we also present an assemblage of professionals in the media space. Some compelling NTA programs, current trends in the fashion world, ICT, sports, entertainment, and lots more.
Meet Professor Charles Anosike, the Director General and Chief Executive Officer of the Nigerian Meteorological Agency, as he shares his vision in repositioning NIMET as a key player in Nigeria's climate strategy.
Get a copy at the vendor near you or any NTA station nationwide. TV Guide, your indispensable companion.
Introducing the new Jig Sachet. Whitening your whites has never been more affordable. Now you can keep whites shining brighter and disinfect by killing 99.9% of germs on your floors and other surfaces. Just jig it with Jig Sachet.
Our major currency unit is the Naira, while the minor unit is the Kobo. They are both in notes and coins. The Naira is more than just a medium of exchange. It bears the images of our heroes. So, stop abusing the Naira. It is a criminal offense to spray the Naira at events. Stop stepping on the Naira. It's not your enemy. Do not squeeze, ruffle, or write on the Naira. Handling the Naira with dirty or oily hands can deface the Naira. Love the Naira as you love yourself. Be a real Nigerian. Do not abuse the Naira.
The counsel of our fathers.
I will urge and advise our younger generation to use talent and brain to sort out problems, not arms.
Nigerian youths, let's build our nation together.
The Nigerian national flag represents our country's history, culture, and identity. It was designed in 1959. The colors are Emerald Green 2.0, which represents agriculture, and Immaculate White represents unity and peace. Know how to handle our flag. Illuminate the environment or don't fly the flag overnight. Do not fly a dirty or tattered flag. Take such flag to the nearest National Orientation Agency office for proper disposal and replacement. The national flag can only be flown at half-mast on the directive of the federal government. The national flag must be flown at the same or higher height when displayed alongside other flags. Don't burn or allow the national flag to fall on the ground. Do not print, decorate, modify, or insert the coat of arms on the flag. Our national heroes are not buried with the flag. They are honored by presenting it to their next of kin during interment. Respect our national flag. Be a real Nigerian.
This message was brought to you by the National Orientation Agency, NOA.
I want to play!
Survey says. If my phone rings at 2 a.m., it's probably
My mom.
an emergency.
Landlord. Achaluko. I will give you 1.5 million. After you smile finish, I will add extra 1.5 million just for you to move around. I will not add extra 2 million naira. Just for you to call me Odogu.
Family Feud Nigeria Season 3 is officially live.
Well, up next on the program is the newspaper review. Stay with us.
All right, we have Chukwudi Okoli Ogbaja with us again this Friday morning. Good to have you, sir. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Yeri, and I'm happy it's Friday.
Same here.
What do you do on Fridays?
I prepare to rest on Saturday.
Oh, you prepare to rest?
Starting from Friday.
I thought you prepared to go to the farm weekends.
Oh,
okay.
No. We call them and they do the work. I'm beginning to trust these people. Victor, good morning.
But you know, without supervision, anything could happen, you know.
Particularly, many Nigerian businesses died because
you have to be there.
My brother had started a motor business, a transport business with 20 vehicles. He had to sell off the last 3 they left for him last year.
All right. Since you are talking business, let's start with the business NG, right? The lead story reads, FG spends 75% of revenue on debt management. AFDB warns Nigeria's rising debt costs threaten economic stability, reports, okay? And above the nameplate, Rivers State, emergency rule faces possible extension as crisis deepens. That story is on page 2. And another story on page 2, banks dominate capital market with over 600 billion naira fresh offers. That's on page 2. And down the line, Elumelu owns 20.5% of UBA after 1.5 billion naira buy. Interesting. And just beside it, 2027 coalition, Obi's mixed signals rattle obedience. Okay, and finally, Nigeria's high NPR could hamper credit investment, and that's according to financial experts. That story is also on page 2. Yenre.
All right, let's see what the Daily Times is offering this morning. The Daily Times leads with a very sad story. That's the Niger flash flood, and it is captioned this way: 21 dead, dozens missing in deadly Niger flash flood, and that's on page 2 of the Daily Times. Not a good one at all. Above that, above the masthead, we have immigration naps wanted ritual suspect fleeing Nigeria at Seme border. That's on page 5. Looking below the picture story, of course, it's important to mention that the picture story is that of the current games ongoing in Abeokuta, right? Isn't that it? And I can say this is Team Delta. I hear that, the young ones are doing us proud at that sports festival. Now, away from that, we have Tunji Ojo backs push for early voting rights for security. Electoral workers. National Day of Mourning. CSO slam government in action. Say 6,500 killed in a year. Reps committee summons WAEC over exams irregularities. Appeal court victory. Ukwebulo counsels Igodalo to accept judgment. That's an update of the Edo governorship election, and of course, the fallout of it. Tinubu's addiction to loans mortgaging Nigeria's future, credited to Atiku. And in the red strip, we have Fubara recommits to peace, vows to rebuild rivers, and that's on page 12. So that's about it on the front page of the Daily Times this morning. Chikudi.
Yeah, I was quite, I was a bit pleased when we were told that part of the reason the foreign exchange platform was floated and the fuel subsidy was removed was to free up money for development, because we were almost putting everything into debt servicing, not even returning principal. But this AFDB report is giving me the jitters again. It says that Nigeria might be spending 75% of revenue just to service debts. And you ask yourself, where is money to handle recurrent as well as capital, expenditure? It's not a very good place to be in, from my layman's interpretation of the economics of it. I hope that action will be taken to see how we can steady the trend before reversing it. Because when a patient sometimes comes into a hospital in trauma or with trauma, the first thing you do is to stabilize the patient at least. Then you begin to think of heading him or her towards recovery. I don't think that this is a very, very nice story. But then economists will come to you here and tell you what the real issues are. They are more accurate than general knowledge journalists like me.
Okay.
Yes.
What do you make of the push for early voting rights for security and electoral workers? And I add journalists.
Those things are not supposed to be headline matters. They're not supposed to be things we want to speculate about or want to even toy with. Those are things that should have started more than 10 years ago. The point is that when I say that Africa holds itself back, it is because of some manners exuded by African people. It's not that we can't afford it in terms of what it requires from a financial point of view. It's not that. It's really attitudes that hold back things that will make African elections more transparent. You begin to find out that vested interests do not want certain things to happen, because that would enhance transparency, and some people would not be able to play what one of my news managers used to call jiggery-pokery, use unfair means to do certain things. So that's long overdue. Not just those people you picked. A sizable population of Nigerians could be prepared to do early voting if we have the will. It can happen. It depends on us, really. Everything has always depended on us. But our manners, hold us back on the continent. That's how I look at it. Then, Okpewolo, the appeals court has affirmed his election, but Ighodalo is kicking and is heading to the Supreme Court. Again, I tie it to transparency of African elections. Sorry, when you talk about Nigeria, I pan out because I want to make a point. The things that we complain about are happening to the black man, essentially. It's attitudes he brings into things he does. We were talking about the other time that democracy is too expensive maybe it's too expensive for Nigeria or Africa. And I asked, what is it about democracy that does not work to the good of the citizenry? It requires you to be transparent. It requires you to make even that man in the wheelchair be able to say who rules him. It requires you to do things in all honesty and transparency. So what is it about it you are complaining about? We want to make it monarchical democracy or what? What is it we want? The fault is not in our stars. It is in us. It's in our attitudes. We bring in things that have no place in this century. into how we do our things in Africa. And that's not going to help us. Apart from Rwanda, tell me the African country people are waving the banners for in terms of development after Rwanda. That is the point. It is not an accident. It's in our attitudes. People come, they do brother for things, about things that concern the Commonwealth, every one of us. Ethnicity, some people say religion, I don't really, the religious card is just a ruse. It's usually ethnicity. Ethnicity leads to nepotism. Nepotism leads to underdevelopment because square pegs will get into round holes. So it's just us. We can change it by becoming more sincere to our own projections and desires in life. That's my take on it. That's it.
Well, so many issues, really.
Yes.
And
We
this
didn't
Niger
mention the
flash
Niger-
flood.
Okay, good.
Very, very devastating. I mean, so many reports here and there, but this Daily Times says 21.
And the place where it happened, the problem there is that it met a lot of people. They say many Almajiri, I think the plural is Almajiri. Almajiri. Yeah, I learned that from one station. Okay, there were many of them that got affected because that place is a parking lot. You know, it's like Wudu. Where's Wudu? Kano or where? Kano. It's like Wudu. And they are really in Edo State, you know. So
Close
many people there. So that's why the casualty figures got that.
Maybe the timing. I hear.
Okay,
I
what?
hear it happened maybe at night or something.
Oh,
like that.
yeah. That means that movement had been slowed down by either sleep or a form of rest people could muster at that time. It's really unfortunate. Is what actually matters more than the incident itself is the tendency for it to
recur.
Yeah, exactly. That is the problem. And it's not just a question of they don't construct good drainages anymore. Climate change is actually wreaking its own havoc on all of this. So the elements are partly responsible. Makes it a tough job to rein it in. But that's not to say...
But there are certain things that we can also do.
Exactly.
I mean, to reduce the severity.
That's where I was going.
Last year we talked about flooding.
No.
Last year, and I remember saying, look, what do we do to mitigate it?
Yeah.
Because every year, next year, we'll talk about it again.
I'm beginning to think that it's too early, you know? It's too early. The rains are just coming.
Exactly.
You know, so it might get worse.
And then next year we come here again and talk about the things that have happened, the casualties and all.
Yes.
What do we do to stop it from happening again?
You can't stop it, really. Climate change has become part of the problem.
You can mitigate
it,
at least.
The ice is melting fast and waters are being poured more onto dry land across the world. That raises the level. So a little rain comes, joins what melting ice has released, and you have a deluge almost immediately. That I don't think you're going to do much about. But for crying out loud, we can do our drainages for roads that need drainages. That's why I'm thanking Wiki.
And again, attitude.
And dams where
again, attitudes. Don't block
again.
The drainages.
All the polythene we are packing into those gutters. We should stop that attitude. It's not fair. When I see plastic, when I go to shops to buy things and they put it in that, what do you call it? The black rubber polythene. I tell them, take it back. You don't know the poison you're giving me. If you see fish washed out of water, or whether it's Lagos Lagoon, anywhere, go and check his bowels. It's plastic that killed that fish. You are planting, those of us who are farmers know this. When you meet plastic, just on the soil there, when your cassava or yam gets to that plastic, it doesn't go beyond the plastic. So we need to take care of it. Thanks for raising that. Very important. Attitudes again.
Attitudes.
Gutters are blocked. Drainages are blocked deliberately. People throw things out of the windows of their cars. People who are in state-of-the-art Range Rovers. Attitudes.
Well, I'm not about to block you, but... it's time to say goodbye.
I wish we had time to talk about this WAEC issue. It's
WAEC.
nauseating.
What was that bit about it? I didn't read it out.
Oh, well, so many reports about, people writing late at night with lamps and all of that. And I'm saying that, we should just get things right once and for all.
Again, you're talking about things that should have been prevented a long time ago.
Well, Chukwudi, let's thank you very much for your time on program this morning.
Thank you.
We'll see you again on Monday?
Monday, by His grace.
I
will
right.
be here.
Good Morning Nigeria continues after this time, but please don't go away.
From the Atlantic across the savannah to the Sahara, we rise, a land of the free, we know they tire. We dream great, our spirit is undying.
Resilient, rooted like palm tree, we sway in colors, with undying demand. We make solutions, we ignite passion, yeah. Ethnicity is unique, we are more than just a nation.
We are Nigeria, strengthening unity. We know they carry lives. We are Nigeria, together live the dream of a land with great destiny. We are Nigeria.
I am the real Nigerian. Brought to you by the National Orientation Agency, NOA.
Introducing the new Jig Sachet. Whitening your whites has never been more affordable. Now you can keep whites shining brighter and disinfect by killing 99.9% of germs on your floors and other surfaces. Just jig it with Jig Sachet.
At NTA Television College Jos, you will dive into exhilarating hands that will fuel your passion in education and propel your career to new heights. We don't just teach, we craft the next generation of media leaders. Explore our diverse offering, understanding the personnel matters and issues in the public service, basic development communication, financial reporting under IPSAS, and interpretation of public sector accounting standard IPSAS, audit, internal check and control management, video camera maintenance, new technologies, optics, fiber, IP technologies, automation, storage management, and wireless technology. Challenges and opportunities in the secretarial profession in the digital age. Digital marketing, basic drama, online reporting, understanding the provisions of the revised public service, audio engineering operations and maintenance, camera operations, and intermediate drama. Mark your calendar. The second quarter of 2025 is your launch pad. This is your moment to seize the future. Announcer management.
Hey Nigeria, ready to breathe cleaner air and save money? Let's talk about gas. Drive with CNG, the smart, cost-effective choice. Fill up for less and travel further. Save money, save the planet. Switch to LPG for cooking. It's cleaner, healthier, and better for environment. Say goodbye to smoke and eye problems. Do you know Nigeria is a gas nation ranked 9th globally with over 209 trillion cubic feet of gas reserve? Gas isn't just for cooking and driving. It powers industries too. Cleaner, cheaper, and more efficient. And the best part, conversion centers are popping up everywhere. It's never been easier to switch to gas. Join the cleaner energy revolution. Choose LPG for cooking and CNG for your vehicles. Clean energy for brighter future. This message is brought to you by the Office of the Honorable Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Gas, supported by the Nigeria Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority, NMDPRA.
The Nigeria Coat of Arms is the official seal that represents the authority of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, hung on the wall behind the seat of the principal officer of the government, supported by the portrait of the serving President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. It has 7 features. The black shield stands for Good Earth of Nigeria. The silver wavy band stands for the confluence of rivers Niger and Benue. The 2 white horses stands for dignity. The yellow flora is a common wildflower throughout Nigeria. The red eagle stands for strength. The wreath is in our national colors of green, white, green. The motto, unity and faith, peace and progress, is written on a beautiful yellow ribbon, and it's a maxim for all Nigerians. Be a real Nigerian.
The federal government of Nigeria warns vandals of national assets, electricity transmission towers, cables and other facilities to desist from this act of sabotage. Vandalism is a serious crime, parents including your loved ones. Remember that national assets belong to all of us, hence the need to protect them. Report all cases of suspicious movement around electrical facilities to security agencies. When you see something, say something. This message is from the Federal Ministry of Information and National Orientation in collaboration with the National Counter-Terrorism Center, NCTC, Office of the National Security Advisor.
All right, many thanks for remaining with us. And in case you just joined us, this is Good Morning Nigeria, live on the network service of the NTA. And it's about time to get into our conversation. But just before we do that, let's take a look at this background report put together by our correspondent, Ibrahim Belogunda.
Nigeria has once again attained a feat of 26 years of uninterrupted civilian rule since returning to democracy in May 1999. Marking the fourth and longest republic in its history, with the National Assembly also in existence for 26 years. The earlier republics, first to third, only had brief lifespans, characterized by military rule, civil war, coup, and counter-coups. However, with the return of democratic governance in 1999, Nigerians have accepted democracy as the best option of governance in the country, with the successful transition of power from one democratic administration to another, and successful switch of political parties in the states and at the federal level. From 1999, when Olusegun Obasanjo came to power as a civilian president, to Umar Musa Yar'Adua and Goodluck Jonathan, all of the People's Democratic Party, to Muhammadu Buhari and the incumbent president, Bola Ahmed Tinubu of the All Progressive Congress, the democratic journey has been steady. Despite all odds, Nigeria is one of the strongest democracies in Africa and a reference point, being the largest democracy, with gains recorded over the years through socio-economic and political development. All these cannot be said to have without challenges, especially insecurity, corruption, tribalism and religious differences. How can continue to build on its democracy? What is expected of Nigerians in the process of building a democratic system that accommodates all Nigerians? And how can Nigerians work together to solve the current challenges affecting them? These and more will be the questions guests on Good Morning Nigeria will find answers to on the program.
All right, many thanks, Ibrahim Belogunda, for interrupted democratic rule. Let me welcome here in the studio Ezenwa Nwagu, who is the chairman, Partners for Electoral Reforms. We thank you so very much for joining us again.
Thank you. Good morning, Oz.
All right, let's also welcome here in the studio Public Affairs Analyst Jide Ojo. My pleasure to welcome you.
My pleasure too, Victor. Good morning, Nigerians.
All right, also joining us for the conversation, but not right here in the studio, via Zoom, all the way from Kaduna, is Professor Gabriel Mato. He's a political scientist. Many thanks for joining us, Prof. Good to see you.
Good morning, Nigeria. Good morning, my colleagues.
All right, thank you very much. Let me begin from here in the studio, and I'd like to start with Jide Ojo. 26 years is a long time, apparently. In fact, this morning I was engaging with Yen Ray. She said if it was a 26-year-old man, would we say it's a grown? I said that's a fully grown man, responsible for his actions, most likely responsible for himself, maybe married in some cases. Mm-hmm. But for us, in the life of a democracy, it's also a long time. In your view, what defines Nigeria's democratic experience today? Promise, paradox?
It's a mixed view of the two. It's, of course, democracy comes with its promises of good governance. But the paradox is an utopia. You to aspire, you are never there. America got independence in 1776. That's over 200 years ago. But America is not there yet. I like the background that my brother did, but our 26 years, we've had 7 electoral cycles, 7 general elections, and scores of off-cycle governorship elections and by-elections. And that defines our democracy for us, because save for that and the party system, the military has others. The military has the judiciary. They never touch judiciary, even though there are abstract clauses that you cannot adjudicate on this matter or that matter. But judiciary will exist under a military rule. But the only harm that will not exist is the legislative assembly. And then the political parties are also not there. So the fact that in the last 26 years we've had all our democratic institutions intact. Today we are celebrating 10th National Assembly. And then 26 years of unbroken civil rule. Civil rule, to me, is not yet a democracy. We have the institutions, no doubt, but the institutions are still largely weak. They are still weak, because that's why when you talk of party system, people will say they don't have ideology. Not that they don't have ideology, they don't follow their ideology. Because every political party has, before you can be registered by INEC, you must state what is the ideology of your party. Even if it's one sentence, to say we are pro-poor, or welfareist, or capitalist, or something, you put it there. But do they even understand what that ideology, what it stands for? Then you look at the judiciary. How strong is that judicial institution? People already start having misgivings in our judicial sector, particularly when it comes to election matters, that there are a lot of influence exerted on their lordship to make call one way or the other. Then you look at our even civil society organizations, as vibrant as we are, as vociferous as we are, as gallant as we are, we have our own issues. We cannot say that the entire civil society is a Puritan, that we don't have issues. There are some of us who are corrupt, who we know have been blacklisted even by the donors. So you see that the media. What do you say of the media? The media is the fourth estate of the realm. It's holding government to account. But we still have issues of brand envelope. We still have issues of quackery. We still have issues of lack of professionalism, incompetence, all of that. So when you look at all these democratic institutions, they are there. And we continue to work on them, to strengthen them, to make them to deliver. The goal of democracy is good governance, as I told you earlier. But are we there yet? Can we say in good conscience, like Section 14, subsection 2B of the Constitution says, that security and welfare of citizens shall be the primary purpose of government? Can you, or Larry, or I Chief, can they, all of us here, say in good conscience that we have security and we have welfare?
All right, I think I'll pause you there. I do not have the answers to that question that you just asked, but let's get to Chief Ezenwa-Nwagwu. I added the chief deliberately.
No, he is.
I know. I mean, I mentioned it again, because of what I'm about to say.
He appeared in his glory.
I'm sure he's enjoying the welfare and security that Jide Ojo talked about.
It's not his indeed.
Okay, it's Abuja.
All right, beautiful. I'm just thinking in all of this, 26 years of democratic rule, for you as a Nigerian, you have seen it all. I would say that technically. You've been here long enough. 26 years of democratic rule, what does it mean to you as a Nigerian? And what would you say, are the most significant, advancements that we have made in this last 26 years?
Okay, so the 26 years of civil rule is not history to some of us. At least most of us here, it's current affairs because we've lived it.
you know. I think my brother Jide was talking about good governance. We did not fight the military for good governance. We didn't. The military built bridges. They built some of the most important infrastructure.
Enduring
infrastructure that the country had. But there were values that they inculcated, negative values that they inculcated, that we have been unable to win ourselves away from. Jide, what we fought for, which you fought for, as you used your youth to fight for, was freedom.
That's true. Civil liberties.
We put our lives to fight for freedom. The intrinsic values of democracy are the things we are tottering around. So because there is a fetishization, if I will put late Professor Abubakar Momo, you know, of good governance. That's why people build roads, 3-kilometer roads. They use 20 million to show that they built 50 million to show that they built. But those are not, as important as they may be, they are not. So what we will look at is these intrinsic values that I've talked about. How much have we been able to civilize ourselves? We are still commandist in thinking, authoritarian in relationships, dictatorial in outlook. We still build personality cults. So it's all about following those structures. If you go to anywhere, what you see is the respect for people, not institutions. Oh, the DG is coming. Oh, that's not part of what this thing is supposed to be. It's supposed to be a process. We are not yet process-driven people. So, as I reflect on 26 years, I am very much concerned about whether the executive understands their role. If you have a minister, does he understand the power of representation? That as a minister, he represents people, especially the way it is couched in our own country, where every minister comes from a state, right? What does that mean? As we are in federal cabinet, if we are discussing livestock transformation, what do they call it? Ruga. You are supposed to go to your state and tell them that we have a plan to do this and this is the value for you. Well, we don't have that. He doesn't see himself as a representative. Even the one who is elected to represent sees himself as a czar. He sees himself as an emperor. So until as we work to do this, within this next frontier that we're going to, we must establish processes. Why is there corruption that my brother talked about? It is because the office of the Auditor General was elbowed by the military. When the military came, they didn't want any audit. For you to steal money in the Federal Civil Service, you need a chain. Because memos are raised, it goes from one place to the other, and then
a chain of beneficiaries.
Then it gets to audit. Right? But today there are monies. We used what we inherited from the military to make government houses banks.
So are you trying to say that we've not really made significant improvements?
That's not what I'm saying. Because you want me to talk about, you see, in the conversations about, I've been around this conversation for the past 3 days in different media. The push is to have some chest thumping, you know, some chest thumping about what has been achieved. And I'm telling you that If it is the things that you are looking at, anybody can do it. If we have a military government tomorrow, God forbid, what are they going to be doing? They are going to be building roads. They are going to be paying salaries. They are going to be trying to fund hospitals. That is not a special thing. That's the point that I want to make.
It is building the institutions.
It is, like he said, it is strengthening institutions of democracy in a way that they can allow for freedom. That freedom will bring out the innate qualities of the people who live in this space. Let me tell you, when the military were here, you didn't have the expression of Nollywood the way you have it today. Thinking was stultified because of the oppressive nature of that system. So we need to open up in a way that people... So we are ventilating around how many kilometers. They have stabilized the economy. The economy has been stabilized, and the Naira is now moving. All those things, we've created institutions. We have. But go and do a media content analysis between 1999 and today. Do a media content. Just take... my brother is the expert on dates and go and do all the speeches that these presidents that have been produced within these 26 years. Go and do the media content analysis of their speeches and see whether you see any big difference in terms of what they are saying, what they've been saying in the last 26 years. It's about sacrifice for the people. It's about the road will be tough. It's about we are on a journey. We will take you to that paradise. That's the story. That's what the media content analysis will produce for you. I think we need to shift from there and position our country in a way that it can be process-leading, process-driven, institutionally minded. That way, the things that we are struggling for will become... Just imagine that the state houses of assembly in the states are functioning the way state houses ought to function. Imagine that the state judiciaries are functioning the way they ought to function. Imagine that you do a leadership audit since 1999 and say, for instance, the legislators in the Southeast, how much have you got from constituency project? How has it manifested in the life of the people? Can you do that audit? Can you ask questions? So democracy, finally for me on this, is not about these things. It's about asking questions. It's about questioning. The military, for instance, will buy starch of chairs, for instance. Let's say they say they are bringing 1,000 chairs. Right? Now, they can supply 700. That's the military. Under the military, you cannot ask them.
Why is it 700?
No, you can't even count. Because it is when you are allowed to count that you can raise number. You have seen chairs. Chairs are here. But democracy is about counting. One by one.
Accountability.
Yes, did you supply 700?
And the quality.
Did you supply 1,000? What is the quality of what you supplied? Who supplied it? Are there conflict of interest issues? Were there bidding? All those are intrinsic values
of a democratic
that are
system.
not existing currently. Because what we inherited from the military, we have carried on. The lack of accountability, the lack of questioning, the lack of... In fact, question irritates the leaders of the country. That you are even asking questions. The same way the military calls you, what do they used to call us then? What do they call us then?
Bloody civilians?
No, I will remember. You are just a bloody whatever. You can't ask questions. You can't ask questions. So today, people who are in leadership are still irritated by questions. You are irritated by, okay, this building is very beautiful. But who approved it? How was it approved? How much was released? Once you ask that question, boy, you will now know that we are not in a democracy yet.
All right. So, well, thank you very much. But I want to take my question now to Professor Kabir Matu, and I'm traveling all the way to Kaduna. Prof, thank you again for joining us. From your perspective as an academic and then a political scientist, I'd like you to describe the evolution of Nigeria's democratic culture over the last 26 years. Are we growing really, or we are merely going through the motions?
Well, thank you very much again. Good morning, my colleagues Jide and Eze. It's a pleasure seeing you again. I think I share the views that have been expressed by both Eze and Jide as far as the situation of Nigeria's civil rule is concerned in the last 26 years. I'm not sure if really we're making progress. What I think we are making more or less is we are progressing in error, in the sense that you tend to see so many things that are evolving out of our political system that ordinarily by now, after 26 years, we should have gone past it. One would have thought that in 26 years, just like Jide said, and Eze, you become an adult. If you are born 26 years ago, certainly you are an adult. You must have been a graduate, probably a worker, or at least somebody who is smart, and so on and so on. So 26 years really is not 26 days or 26 weeks. And one would expect that, during this period, a lot of things must have happened that have successfully shaped, the nature and character of political intercourse and governance in Nigeria. But unfortunately, what we are seeing today seems to be a retraction of the progress that we are supposed to have made. One is that we have not successfully built virile political institutions that by now we would proudly say in 26 years we have been able to build a political party system that is stronger than it was in 1999 when the civil rules started waving in 2003. We have not been also able to establish a ruling class or bring up a ruling class that has central, to its focus the wishes and aspirations of the Nigerian people. And then, of course, by now, I expected also the Nigerian political elite, those in the political, parties aspiring for representation, would have built sufficient level of maturity to the extent we would say we were making progress. But if you look at it critically, you'll find that the reverse is the case. We don't seem to be making all this progress. And in my view, this is very challenging. I was always, as a student of political science, shared the late Professor Sam Aluko's views that there is no linear relationship, for instance, between democracy on one hand and economic, social, and political development on the other hand. But then, what we have in Nigeria today, unfortunately, seems to be the fact that in as much as some practitioners within the system, if we take the electoral system, for instance, I would say without any fear of contradiction, that between 2003 and until 2023, the level of political apprehension that Nigeria had in the process had substantially changed because of the relative improvement as far as the chain of electoral management and conduct of elections, and the behavior of the election management body is concerned. But then, what about the attitude of the Nigerian politician that eventually becomes, the political leader, that becomes the leader in government? I would say that the negative is the case because, it is very clear. As a student of political science, I find it difficult to appreciate or see any wisdom, in the attempt, to perhaps make Nigeria a one-party state. Anybody can tell you. The other day, Abdullah Ganduje told us that, there is nothing wrong with one-party system. China does it and is not complaining about it. I don't expect a doctor of philosophy. I don't expect someone, of that political stature that has so long to, begin to make such a statement, or even the president himself, who came to say something like that. That's not Western liberal plural democracy, and that is the system that we have been trying to copy. So I share Eze's views. I share, Jide's views that it is not yet Uhuru. In fact, we seem to be progressing in error because the areas that were supposed to major attainments after 26 years, if you look at them very critically, you will find that, unfortunately, we have retrogressed rather than progressed. 26 years, it is not yet Uhuru. And even if you take about, Eze was making a lot of comparison as far as the relationship between the military and the people, or the civilians and the people, governance, is concerned in Nigeria. And you will find that if you take, we're all practitioners. We've been here since military rule. We've been adults since military rule. We are still alive now that it's 26 years of civil rule. But if you look at the level of dilapidation or collapse in the Nigerian political, economic, and social system, you will find that it's been worse between 1999 and 2025, than it was between 1960 when Nigeria, obtained flag independence from colonial Britain, up to 1999 when this administration. So while we celebrate an uninterrupted, 26 years of civil rule, I think it's also important for us to take a critical review of the nation, especially those of us that are old enough to do that, because these are not issues or things that you can, comfortably or easily read in any book, to be able to see and compare, but he who feels it, who knows it best. So that's basically it. You take, this period between 1960 and 1999, and then you take between 1999 and 2026, and see the level of degeneration as far as the national economic frontiers are concerned. Then, of course, you are left with, no option than to say, look, we need to rethink again. The Nigerian political class needs to strategize, in order to be able to understand the essence of democracy and good governance, instead of all this idea of, aspiring and then struggle to conquer political power, for reasons that, as far as I'm concerned, translated into reduction of the quality of life of the citizenry of this country. So it is not yet Uhuru. I share the views of our colleagues, and I think we're not critiquing per se. We are only asking, calling on the political leadership to read the handwriting, to look at the mirror. The picture there is not very glaring. It's not as beautiful as it should be. And, 26 years after civil rule, with the tremendous, and the abundance of resources we have, it shouldn't have been the way we are today.
So for your opening comments, the views seem to be similar. We've not really made much progress. And in the words of Professor Mato, we are progressing in error. We hope that we're able to correct that. But you see, listening to him and listening to Chief Ezenwa-Nwagu, speak, he talked about the political class. Ezenwa talked about nobody's asked, or rather, you cannot ask questions. And I'm thinking, Jide Ujo, would you say that it is the conduct of the political class that has put us in this situation? Or you want to also look at it in the part that the people are not really, like he said, he gave an example of, say, something is delivered, you're not asking questions. Are the people willing to ask questions? You would want to say, because I mean, if, for example, somebody from my place is the governor and he brings chairs, I'm like, okay, he's from my local government, we shouldn't ask him questions. Whatever he does is right, So is it really the people that has made the advancement slow? Or would you want to, heap the whole problem on the political class?
Thank you, Leon. For me, this week, on Wednesday, 2 days ago, I wrote in my column in the Point newspaper, Nigeria's ruling elite and state capture. Who are the ruling elite? The political class. In the last 26 years, what they have been mindless about, or should I say mindful about, is state capture. And this is across party lines. It's across both national and subnational. Everybody is trying to capture state institutions to serve its own personal aggrandizement. You cannot blame the victim. The people are asking questions, but do they get answers? If at all they get answers, it's very glib answers. Don't worry, we are on it. Elofo Kambale.
So have they shown determination to continue to ask, I mean, because you're talking about state capture. If the environment is not friendly, if the people are not, just relaxing and say, let them go ahead what you're doing, they won't have that, ability.
Have you seen how many protests there have been? What engineered those protests? We had the End Bad Governance protest last October. We had one, was it March or thereabout this year? See, the point is, don't blame the victim. People have been pulverized that even to speak out is now a problem. During the NSAS protest of 2020, we should not forget just how many years ago, they said Soros okay. Soros okay means speak loud.
Speak up. Speak out.
Yeah. Speak loud. People spoke. But what did the state do? You saw the Lekki killings. How many people have been compensated? They set up Judicial Commission of Inquiries. Who is implementing them? National Human Rights Commission did their own investigation. They presented their own report. What has become of those reports? You don't blame the victim. Those guys that sat on the floor singing with national flag, demanding change, were more than in cold blood. Do you think anybody in his right senses will want to go and do similar things? That was why the End Bad Governance protest of last year wasn't that vibrant. It was meant to last from, I think, August 1 to 10, but by second, third day, it fizzled out. Right now, the president made a promise to convey National Youth Confab over 6 months ago. Has it held?
Well, there's time for planning. Perhaps that will happen.
Yorubas will say, if you use 3 years to plan on how to die, when will you want to die? Planning a youth confab for over 6 months. It shows our lack of seriousness. It shows our... you asked me, the first question you asked me was about promise and what? You said
paradox.
Yes. And paradox. It's a paradox. It's a paradox. That's what Prof was saying.
But let's look at it this way. There are still a lot of things that we have managed to achieve in democracy that couldn't happen. Let's look at legislation, for instance. You want to look at the Not Too Young to Run, which was powered by civil society. You couldn't have that under a military rule.
I agree.
I agree. This is just one example. There are many, countless of them that we're able to pull through. So, is it the case that the 26 years
Victor,
is all a waste?
Victor, how do you say somebody is mature and responsible? Somebody fathered a child, but is not catering for the needs of those children. Will you call him responsible? He's responsible enough to father a child, but is he responsible enough to nurture the child? You cannot say in 26 years we have not achieved anything.
That's not the point.
That is not the point. That's besides the point. I acknowledge that. We are not where we ought to be, but we are not where we used to be. The institutions of governance are there. They have not been subverted. Glory to God. I mean, in the background that your colleague gave us, he said this is the longest of all the 4 republics we have had since 19...
Which in itself is an achievement.
It's an achievement, but should we toy with it? Should we engage in self-glorification for underachieving? Because it's an underachievement. Professor Ehosa Osage, who is now the Director General of National Institute for International Affairs, Lagos, wrote a book, The Crippled Giant, and he was talking about Nigeria. The crippled giant. We are a giant, but we are crippled. We have not been able to deliver. Okay, in Africa we say we are the biggest economy. We are the biggest economy. But what is the quality of lives of average Nigerians? How many people have been lifted out of poverty? How many, in 2 years ago, we were talking about 133 million that are multidimensionally poor. If you do that survey today, you may find over 200 million that are multidimensionally poor. unless you want to just paper over it, because the quality of life has depreciated. So Azu and Leon, I'm not by any stretch of imagination saying we have not achieved anything in 26 years. And you cannot blame all the woes of this country on the current administration, because government is a continuum. You know, I used to tell people, if PDP was a undergraduate, APC is postgraduate. So, and you continue, it's a continuum. You cannot be a postgraduate without an undergraduate. So, and it's not about party, because we miss the point when we say, oh, PDP win this country, APC win this country. It's not people, it's not the institution that ruined us. It's the people, it's the operators. Because today, the 2/3 of people in APC today were formerly in PDP. There were governors there, there were senators there. So if you are now saying, oh, this party ruined Nigeria, or this party, you are begging, you are not being empirical and scientific in your analysis, because governance is personality driven. And what Chiveze is saying is, let's have a process-led governance. Due process. Obieze Kwesili, when she was in charge of public procurement, I guess they call her Madam Due Process. Due process of governance is what we have left. We are now doing as arbitrary. Our governance system is arbitrary. Let me give you one or two instances of why I said there is ongoing state capture. The constitution was twice altered to grant state judiciary and state legislature financial and administrative autonomy. In 2018 and 2023, 2 constitutional alterations. Today, go and do a survey. How many state governors have allowed financial autonomy for their state judiciary and state house of assembly? The Supreme Court passed a judgment on July 11, 2024. This is almost another July, almost 1 year. That has not been implemented.
Who's to blame for that?
The ruling class.
All right.
Who have engaged in state. That's what we mean by state capture. You want the rule of the thumb, not the rule of law. And you cannot talk of democracy without a rule of law. What are the 3 pillars of rule of law? Supremacy of the law. That's number 1. Equality before the law. Number 2, fundamental human rights that Eze is talking about. Civil liberties. If all of these are absent, then you are not making progress. Or if you are making progress at all, it's a snail-paced progress.
All right. All right, Jide, thank you very much. Let me get to Ezenwangwa. I know that critical thinking is your thing. So I want to give you, I don't know about mathematics, but I want you to find me X. Chukudi will always tell us here that X and Y ruined his life. So, but find me X here, and X is in our 26 years of unbroken democracy. What are the pluses that we can find? The advantages that we can say we have had, the things that have happened in our democratic experience these 26 years, that if we were not in a democracy, we couldn't be talking about, let alone achieve.
Okay, the first, to just graduate you, not because...
Please do, go ahead and graduate me.
To graduate you, because if you wanted that, you would have invited the Minister of Information. But, you know, to graduate you, that we can do what we are doing in NTA right now is a plus.
Okay. Exactly.
Is a big plus. Okay, the ability to ventilate these ideas without thinking that somebody is going to be waiting for you us outside is part of those intrinsic values that we have seen. But you see, do not waste this airtime by having people like us to look at, you know, the chest thumping. That's what I'm saying. That has happened. It's going around all over the place. There are press conferences by Minister of Aviation, Minister that. Everybody is talking about what has happened in the last 2 years and all of that. So leave that to them. Part of why we're here is that they watch this program and there is something they are able to pick to change things. Our observations are not malicious. They are not intended to pull anybody down. So, Professor Mato, brilliant political scientist, talked about, a proper possible descent to one-party state. That's crap. It's not true, because the challenge is an ineffective opposition. 2023 election provided us the most diverse National Assembly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's political parties represented in the House of Reps.
49.
How many are left now?
No, it's not how many are. Let's not talk about how many are left. As of today, hold on, sir. Between 49% of the National Assembly members of the House of Representatives are made up of the opposition. Opposition is not our business if they are not living up to
their role,
the billing of what an opposition should be.
Do. Perhaps because they are dreaming of joining.
No, this current president mirrored a public opposition when he was
in opposition.
He mirrored it very clearly. At least, to the best of my knowledge, he was not in any board. He was not in any board. He was not appointed into. He did it from 2007 when he finished as governor. He never became a minister. He was not in any board. He remained an opposition figure. And that's what you find in Ghana. The NDC, for instance, will have to wait out opposition when MPP was in power. The MPP people didn't join NDC when they were also in their own waiting process. So it is about, first and foremost, the lack of ability to see the long haul that you don't see in the political class in Nigeria. It is about patronage and cronyism. It is about always wanting to be close to power. And it is not for anybody. Even the conversation about coalitions and the rest of them, central to it is not about strengthening opposition. It is about power.
Who gets what?
It is about capturing power. So, when we talk about building institutions, we are not talking about building only governmental institutions. We are also talking about the need for a formidable opposition that can put the feet of the opposition party. They have outsourced that responsibility to civil society.
And the media.
And the media. So, hey, Eze, you are not speaking enough. Civil society people are not talking enough. How is that? I'm not a critic. In fact, part of my work is to complement government efforts. Unfortunately, a lot of people don't know that civil society is not a vanguard is not a union of critics. That's not what it is. It is to torchlight what needs to be improved. The work of opposition to change government for the purpose of instituting new values and ideas is what is lacking. We don't have it. And that is because everybody wants to be close to power. So that's basically one key issue. In the Senate, 22% of that Senate is opposition. If 149, 48 people or 47 people as at today walk out, stage a walkout in a legislature of 360
360 House of Reps. Yeah.
House of Reps.
360.
So if you have 148 people take a walkout, you are not likely going to pass any law.
Well, is that likely going to happen? I mean, the
opposition
you're talking about will just be opposition during the day and not opposition at night, by the way.
Lee, I know opposition. I don't know them in the night. I know them opposition. Because opposition all these are inferences that we make. They have a responsibility. Okay, look at the parties. Look at the political party system. The primary election is the most important election. And I think that's why it is called primary. Because it is very, very important. What happens in our primary elections? that the parties conduct is cash and carry. It's business.
Vote buying.
The one that is major or not major is waiting. If there is a fallout from the other political parties, they just, the fluidity of our party system and the nature and character and complexion of his administrators is what reflects. That's why today you can't have a opposition political party is issuing a statement telling his members in the National Assembly to go a particular way, and the members just go left. You know why? Because I paid you. What's all this one that you are doing? You didn't contribute. I brought my money. I paid you for this ticket. So how dare you instruct me to go a particular way? That's why you can find these opposition people in the legislature taking different line from their parties, because even the parties know that they no longer have that power. So if we want to restructure our thinking, that's the point that I'm making. As the thinking has to be democratic. I started by civilianizing. We have not civilianized our thoughts. The parties use the word. My brother Jide, they use the word give. We gave him ticket. I don't know if you still hear that kind of. So it's not democratic. That word is undemocratic. People should contest for you don't give them. So language, the language of democracy, we need to feel it into ourselves. That's when Azu was trying to draw me to,
to look at the other side.
I've been looking at the other side. I live here. Okay. Do you know what has happened? We have stabilized the naira. The exchange rate has been stabilized. Security.
Food is cheaper.
Security has been
improved.
Well, before you leave
hold on, sir. The truth is that we've also started being respected internationally. Because Financial Times is giving us very positive outlook. The IMF and the World Bank.
All right. Many thanks, representative of the Minister of Information. Thank you very much. Let's get to Let's get to Professor Mato now. Prof, I mean, this conversation is actually not a funny one. I mean, for young people, really, because I mean,
and that's why we are very serious with our submission.
No, really. Listening to elders like you, speak about the state that we are in. I mean, the young person is just asking, what's the future like? Are we actually going to get this right? By the way, to our viewers watching, there's a number on your screen. You can send in your comments, your questions, whatever it is that you want to, contribute to the program. We'll be willing to read them and, of course, ask our guests. Now, back to my question, Professor Mato. I'd like you to speak about, corruption in all of this. Because, I mean, it's like, that's like the main force why things may not be going right, from all that you've said and all that we've heard in the studio right here. What is the main reason why corruption doesn't seem to be reducing or leaving us?
Thank you very much. I think it was Chukudi, while reviewing the newspapers this morning, that laid a lot of emphasis on the issue of attitude. I think attitude has been fundamental in the way we do our things, in the way we run our life. Government institutions, attitude has been very, very central. So our attitude to corruption is, in my view, increased more, by the nature and character of political leadership that we have in this country. We have seen leaders from even during military rule, but specifically from 1998, about the issue of corruption. But the issue that if you lead from the front, it is possible that this, gigantic national issues such as corruption. But if you are part of it, you lead in an atmosphere of confusion, and it seems to be happening, then of course we continue to sink deeper. So corruption has not been able to disappear in Nigeria, specifically maybe because of the fact that the manner in which we try to fight against it, has been fundamentally selective. Selective in the sense that we define those who are corrupt. If they are not with us, are not corrupt, are mostly those who are with us. We close our eyes to corruption that is in our immediate vicinity and environment. And if we do that, then of course we are going to continue to have this crisis that we are having. And then, importantly, also, the issue of corruption is not necessarily restricted to the economic dimension. But the worst form of corruption that we seem to be having is the political corruption that permeates the Nigerian political scenery in its entirety. We confront the rule of law. I think it was Jide who was talking about it. Negatively, we don't believe in the state of law. We don't believe in the quality of law. We only talk about the fundamental human rights of Nigerians, why it affects us. But why it affects others, I think we are not very careful about it. So as long as the Nigerian political establishment is not interested in giving corruption a common denominator and interpreting it as corruption, be it economic, political, or social, then we are likely going to continue to face this crisis that we are facing as a people. And as long as corruption permeates in the Nigerian society, then it is not likely that we are going to get things right. There is a lot of apprehension. Look at the legislative arm of government that we are talking about. If you take into consideration and in comparative perspective the nature and character of the 10th Assembly with that of the 9th Assembly and the 8th Assembly, you will find that, comparatively, the 10th Assembly, in my own analysis, is the worst of the assemblies we have had. Because this is the first time in the 26 years of this civil rule that we are having a National Assembly make a law in one day. It is not possible. There are quite a few, motions that have gone to the Assembly, bills that have gone to the National Assembly in the morning when they start sitting, and by the time they close for the day, it's camera ready waiting for position. This is not legislative democracy. People have reason to worry when you see this type of extreme absolute conformism between the legislature and perhaps the executive arm of taking place. It's not just a crisis that happens between state assemblies and their state governments. It is also permeated deeply. And the National Assembly, unfortunately, sees it as their own contribution to the development of national democratic culture, while in reality, it is counterproductive, negative, and destructive, to the very fabric of our national life. And so, this is basically my point of view about it. Corruption is fundamental, and unless we see it as a national malaise and we treat it as such, and then without fear or favor, that is the equality before the law, the supremacy of the law, and the fundamental human rights that we are talking about, then we are continuing to run round, and unfortunately will not get. And then what we are bequeathing, what the political establishment is bequeathing, to young Nigerians, is that unfortunately the younger elements are beginning to feel that what is happening is the rule, is the normal, when in reality it is completely abnormal. You want to pass exams, you don't want to go to class. You want to be rich without working hard on how to get about it. This is the Nigerian problem, and it is a product of this corruption in the political establishment. If we are able to resolve political corruption, I assure you that we will have gone mileage in our attempt to deal with corruption in the economy and in the society as a whole.
Thank you for your comments. We need to pause now for a break. When we come back, the conversation continues. Don't forget to send us messages and, of course, questions if you like. Please stay with us.
When we think about the digital economy, you can see it as the marketplace for digital goods and services. And increasingly, it's becoming a force to reckon with and an incredible contributor to economic growth, because we've seen the growth in technology and digital platforms. Technology has if it really permeated every aspect of life and business, the way we live, the way we work. And when we talk about the digital economy, we're really talking about leveraging technology and digital platforms in a powerful way to drive growth, to drive solutions to problems, to drive applications, and to provide services.
The digital economy is something that has the potential to help Nigeria leapfrog a lot of its development challenges, right? Because think about what the mobile phone did for Nigeria years ago. That is the potential we have for digital, because it has a way of reducing the barriers to innovation. It has a way of being able to transform service delivery, whether it's government's delivery of services or whether it's services in the health system, where people can use digital to actually be able to see their patients better. But it takes a lot to realize that potential of digital. The first thing is like every other thing, there's an infrastructure you have to build to be able to make sure that digital economy can thrive. Think of something like, capturing that happens in Nigeria, right? Where you capture, people's biometric when they go for a driver's license, when they go for passports, and each of those are separate things. Largely a system where we're able to streamline that and actually have a platform that exchange biometric information that makes it easier for people to access passports, easier for people to register to vote. But today it's very tough, right? But those are basic infrastructure that needs to be invested in. A lot of it is through government and private sector collaborations to make it happen.
If we're looking to accelerate growth in the Nigerian space, we really need to look at enabling the digital economy. That includes providing digital infrastructure, connectivity, because that's the highway, like the highway that everything rides on. We need to think about digital capacity building in terms of the suppliers to the economy and also the consumers within the economy. So a robust digital literacy initiative. The good thing about technology is that, one, it helps you to transcend boundaries. Two, it creates a level playing field, really, because if you create a solution, a technology-based solution that is applicable in this environment, that same technology can be applicable, exported to other environments. And, technology platforms also help drive collaboration, right? When we're thinking about innovation, when we're thinking about business growth, collaboration is an important part of that. So when we think about the impacts with the rest of the world, we find that actually technology platforms are giving us an opportunity to engage more actively, to collaborate, to create partnerships, to even export our knowledge and services for people to engage with all the great things I'm talking about technology and digital platforms. They need access, internet access, broadband access. So we need to make sure that access is more available and affordable for the average user.
The most important thing is to think about where you want to go as a country and actually what type of policies are going to help get you there. There are examples of countries who've been able to transform using digital, for example. There are very clear things those countries did to be able to make it happen. So a lot of this, the pathway to be able to solve these problems are not mysterious, right? It takes courage of the policymakers to be able to understudy some of these things and bring in the policies that work to be able to help them.
All right, many thanks for remaining with us. Our guest, that's very much. It also, we're talking about 26 years of democratic rule in the country. And before we went on that break, we talked about people sending in messages, and we have quite a number of messages. I actually have one that looks like, a book here. I would attempt to, just go through some paragraphs, because I mean, there are almost 10 paragraphs. So,
wow.
you know, but I'll just take a bit. But there's this first one here that says, "Good morning, Nigerians. Democracy has come to stay in Nigeria. Many giant strides have been achieved, but corruption and wastages have to go on the part of government." That's coming from engineer Omyoyang from Jos. The lengthy one says, "Nigeria marks the 26th anniversary and it is a milestone worth celebrating. Ordinarily, considering the twists and turns of the preceding military administrations and how civilians against all odds eventually took over the government. However, it is doubtful whether Nigerians have an inspiring story to tell after 26 years of democracy, apart from the consolation of having kept the khaki boys away consecutively for 26 years. While that feat is in itself laudable, it is certainly not enough to gloat about. It's indeed a miracle that the country has endured the past 26 years without a major political casualty, given that the so-called Democrats ruling the country for that period have unfortunately redefined democracy, not as a government for the people, but as a government for themselves and their cohorts. This is sad and constitutes a big bloat over the celebration of democracy anniversary in the country." I'll just take the last paragraph. It says, "The political class should use today to reflect on how the country got to its present unwholesome condition. Let them remember the toil and sacrifices made to push the military to the barracks. They must realize that they owe a sacred duty to preserve the system and operate by the rules. Nigerians did not retrieve the country from military dictators to hand it to civilian despots and pilferers. Politicians should beware and not take Nigerians for granted. It is either the country practices democracy or not." That's from Comrade Sunday Anthony Obanaya, all the way from Oka. Thank you very much.
All right, I have some messages. Let's keep our messages short so that we don't have the whole day. All right, I'm Abbas Abubakar Saad from Jalingo, Taraba State. As we mark 26 years of unbroken democracy, it's a moment to reflect on both our progress and challenges. Do our challenges stem from our differences? Do they come from the foundation laid by our forefathers? Or are they related to our leadership selection process? What can we do to make everyone feel included in the system, to build trust and to encourage greater participation in democracy? I think that's a question, a whole lot of questions anyway. And then from Akeju Olagbaju, every citizen must regard themselves as political actors to speak out to make democracy thrive in Nigeria. And Anda from Okene says, "I'm enjoying all your conversations, all your discussions, truthful people." Okay. And finally from Joshua from Benin, 26 years of democracy in Nigeria. Let our leaders focus on Nigeria producing what we are importing because we have the resources to do so in abundance. Can't we produce cars, phones, television, etc. that we spend so much on? That's from Joshua from Benin City. Perhaps we can, some of the issues that have been raised, particularly these ones with a lot of questions, isn't well?
I think I would like to write, on from where Professor Matos talked about corruption. And I started off saying that what the military bequeathed to us was the unhealthy, usurpation of the power of audit. The office, the auditor's place in this whole process-led system that I'm talking about is critical. I started off life after secondary school as a clerk in the railways, in the Nigerian Railway Corporation. And I knew that to get money, to take out money from the system was pretty difficult, because you have to be going to audit. You have to go to audit. When is our paper going to? I was working in the medical department. When is our paper going to come out? When is this? So, by the destruction, decimation of the office of the Auditor General, both in the state and in the federal, by the military, it was deliberate, because the military started this warehousing money in government houses. So they didn't want any questioning. So they make sure that so the people who took power from them did not win themselves of that attitude. So we have maintained everything we inherited from the military in terms of structure, which we should have reversed, strengthen that place where questions are asked. Because everything about audit is, you want to spend this money. Why do you want to spend it? Is it according to rules, regulations, statutes, civil service, and all of that? But today, the minister has security vote. Local government chairman has security vote. Governor has security vote. Everybody security vote that they do not account for. Those are things we took from the military. We can remove them. It won't hurt to take them out. It won't hurt to take a system where, so because all you need is a law and order regime. Because corruption, as you know that very well, is everywhere. The challenge is being caught.
You just mentioned law and order, which reminds me of one president like that.
No, the law and order regime in Nigeria is very weak. It's not only weak in government, it's weak everywhere. If I'm arrested today, my village people will come. Don't let him sleep in the cell. He must not sleep in the cell. Even when it is obvious that they will do whatever it takes to take you.
Or you simply make a few calls. And
or whatever. That's what I'm saying. The law and order regime. But in places where you have a law and order regime, you go into a pub. You are in a pub. As you are drinking, you know you are not going to drive. Because you know you are not going to say sorry. When they stop you to do an alcohol check, you cannot say sorry. Sorry is not part of. They give you tickets. If you don't pay, you go to. So, but our system is not driven by process. And I will continue to repeat that. Because if we have a process-driven, this thing, many people will leave Nigeria. They will run away. If the police decides to do their work today effectively to check driver's license and vehicle particulars, you'll be shocked that 60% of the SUVs that you see that drive around at least Abuja where we are have no paper.
Do you know who they are? Those driving the vehicles.
They change their number in the morning. They take one number and transfer it to another.
And then when you stop, then they tell you, "Do you know who I am?"
No, it's not only that way. We put MBA in our cars, sticker of MBA, so that when we drive past, they say he's a lawyer. We put NMA. People even go and buy stethoscope and hang in their vehicle. People put PCR, police
community relations.
People put clergy, because we are people who are always interested in.
And in the US, somebody resigned simply because she got to the checkpoint and flashed her ID card.
That's what I'm saying.
Flashed her ID card, she resigned.
People who enjoy dubious advantage. We enjoy dubious advantage because we don't have a law and order regime. So corruption is not just when people steal money from government purse. It is when you usurp processes in a way that it gives you advantage. That's why Transparency International calls it abuse of public trust for personal gain. Okay. So if we continue to see corruption only from the lenses of leadership. Today, the FCT minister is saying, regularize your paper. People are going to the president and say, in fact, you even saw somebody on television saying the minister is like a son who is asking his father to pay. He should have paid it for his father. No way. That kind of conversation should not arise. No, there's a reason, Lee. There's a reason I'm putting out this thing, because the definition of corruption is always tailored around money, but the consequences of people who beat traffic lights and go and scatter 4 vehicles and the lives that are lost in it diminishes all of us. It diminishes all of us. It's called retail. Some call it retail corruption. They call the other one grand corruption. But it's all name. It's all beautification of nonsense.
All right. Many thanks. Because of time, really, we need to quickly round off this conversation. I mean, we've highlighted all the issues. You talked about state capture being the main problem. In your own what would be your recommendation really? Because from what you have said, the crave to seize power, state capture like you have termed it, is not really helping, as a nation.
Thank you. So, my own concluding thought will be, we all know the problems. They are familiar. I mean, as we are discussing this on your breakfast show, so is all other radio and television stations across the country are also discussing. So people can analyze. Even a secondary school child who is very vast in current affairs, who have read up, will tell you these are our problems. The point is, are we ready to do the needful? Is there the political will to do the right thing? My brother just talked about law and order. It affects you and I. Every one of us want to take advantage wherever we are. The clergies are even taking advantage of government. There are some prayer contractors who prays for the governors and the presidents, and so because they need that one, Dole, those ones are spiritual consultants. And is it somebody when you as a clergy wants to get license for your private university or a land in Abuja or stuff, that you speak truth to power and call a spade and call out. In the Bible, we see prophets who call out kings and leaders, and then the consequences. The issue of Naaman, the leper, who refused to collect gratification, even when he has assisted in healing the war general. Elijah. What happened? In today's Nigeria, if you don't give, the pastors and clergies and GO will blacklist you and say he's a stupid man. You should not don't give me my number. So we are all part of it, and we must win ourselves of this attitudinal challenge. You can't legislate attitude. Unfortunately, you can't. No matter how many legislations you have. For us, look at the electoral environment. I'm very fast. He is very fast. I've been observing elections since 1999. I've had the privilege of observing elections across several continents. You understand? We all know how it is done. But when it comes to Nigeria, people apply Machiavellian principle. The end justifies the means. Declare me the winner. Let the opposition go to court. Yeah. So when you have this, and this attitudinal issue, we celebrated the electoral 2022. We said this is the game changer. This is the best legislation. Oh, this is a legacy for Buhari. But when the regulators set the rules, the players decided to go offside. And what do? Even when elections are violent, elections are procured through vote buying and all of that.
A winner is declared.
A winner is declared. You go to court, up to Supreme Court, endorse. So what else will you do? If you are the odd one out, will you not be thinking you are crazy? Because I think it was Chief Ganifa they said, was quoted as saying, it is criminal for you to be law-abiding in a criminal society. And that's not what we should tailor the lives of our youth. Because now they have seen that we have a culture of impunity. That's my submission. And we must dismantle this culture of impunity if we want to reinvent Nigeria. It's not in bridges. It says something which is on point about civil liberties. How do we cherish our fundamental rights as citizens? Okay, you speak. Remember the former president of Uganda. He said that in Uganda there is freedom of speech.
But freedom
after speech is not guaranteed. And now, when you now talk of, in Nigeria, shrinking civic space, where everything is about cyberbullying, you criticize government or social media, they say you are doing cyberbullying, they pick you up. That is not encouraging freedom. That is not encouraging holding government to account, because the person who has chosen to use the social media, you have not said what is said is wrong. You have only said is maligning you. If you are a thief and somebody calls you a thief, Should that be a maligning? Should that be libelious?
Or a statement of fact?
Or statement of fact. So
All
we
right.
must all win ourselves of this ethical challenge and burden that we have around our necks. Whether you are a clergy, ordinary citizens, artisans that are cheating people in the market spaces, using false measures, traders who cheat their customers, mechanics that will collect money for genuine spare parts from you but go and buy fake ones, and endangering lives of citizens. All of us are complicit. And we cannot be talking of 26 years of democracy looking only at the political class. We must also put mirrors to our respective faces and say, why are we contributing wrongly to Nigeria's development challenges?
All right,
but earlier,
thank you very much.
Jide.
We don't have time here.
Yeah, just before we get to Professor Mato, earlier when I asked you about what the people were doing to check the political class, you talked about the political class being the problem and being unchecked, being uncheckable. So now how?
Larry, the front us is the one the back one used to pace. If you are seeing a race, a horse race, it's the front one that the back one will use to pace. If the leaders win themselves of this challenge that I'm talking about, the followers, you have a moral right. When somebody says, you don't have a moral right to question me, it means that you are also not doing, you are not of exemplary conduct. If our political leaders are of exemplary conduct, they will be able to question and call the followers to order. You cannot be collecting millions of naira in prayers. Prayers have been sent to your email. And yet you come for Salah and say you don't have money to give to people.
All right, Jide, thank you. We've almost completely run out of time. I need to quickly consult Professor Mato, who is the political scientist. And I'm asking simply, how can democratic principles be better reflected in governance outcomes? We are talking about in the face of poverty, insecurity, and weak service delivery.
Well, thank you very much. I think the most important thing is the need for the political class to reorient itself, to change its attitudes, to appreciate the essence of leadership, not as a matter of economic enterprise or a venture where you accent to political authority in order to better your personal lot of family or members of your immediate community. Leadership or leaders in any human society are those very few that will always stand to be counted. And once you stand to be counted, you must realize that you are occupying a very critical position. As long as the Nigerian political establishment and the leadership continues to behave in the manner that it is behaving, it is not likely we are not going to have any change. But then, of course, it is important also for the followership, especially the enlightened segment of the society, to rise to the occasion by challenging those that are in various positions of political authority to do what is right. Not challenging because you want to, get your own share of the national cake or because you want to change the person who is there. No, but because we have to set a code of conduct for our leaders that they must follow. If they don't follow that, there should be an election. And of course, I pray that the Nigerian electoral system continues to be fine-tuned to such an extent that at the end of the day, it is going to be the Nigerian people versus those, who are either in political authority or those who desire to be elected into various positions of responsibility. But I will say, as a matter of conclusion, that the last 26 years we have had an uninterrupted civil rule. It is not a democracy. The last 26 years has also seen the metamorphosis of the Nigerian political structures, in various degree and formation. One would have expected that between 2023 going forward, we will see a lot of maturity, attainments, and progress in the political institutions such as the judiciary, the legislature, and the executive. Unfortunately, the Nigerian judiciary is also gradually being taken as a political institution, and it's not supposed to be a political institution. The legislature has lost its weight. The executive arm of government is also losing its focus. And I think it is time for us Nigerians to come out. And like Eze rightly said, I don't want to be a critic at 63 years. I thought that by now things would have perfected so that our children and our grandchildren will inherit a better system. Unfortunately, what we see by the day, things are getting from bad to worse. Political leaders, not in position of authority, this is not opposition. This is statement of fact which you need to check. When you're sitting upstairs and you are comfortable there, it does not reflect, does not also say in commensurate terms that that is the way of life of the rest of the Nigerian people. So,
all right, Professor Kabir Mato, I'm sorry we had to jump in here because we've completely run out of time, but we'd like to appreciate you very much for your time on Good Morning Nigeria. Professor Kabir Mato is a political scientist and two-time commissioner. We thank you very much for your time and for your perspectives. Let me also thank here in the studio Ezenwa Nwagu, who is Chief Ezenwa Nwagu, who is Chairman Partners for Electoral Reforms. Thank you very much. Even though your partners have found the electoral process difficult to reform, we thank you very much for your contributions to the program. Also, thank you, Njide Ojo, Public Affairs Analyst, for your time on the program. Thank you very much. And that has been Good Morning Nigeria. We thank you so very much for watching. Go enjoy your weekend and we'll see you again on Monday. I am Victor Azu.
And I'm Henry John, living locked on the NTA.